Airport security stopped the elderly veteran until a three-star general saw his medal. The airport is loud. Not the kind of loud that comes from voices or announcements, but the kind that hums beneath everything. Rolling suitcases on tile, the pneumatic hiss of automatic doors, the constant shuffle of 1,000 strangers moving through fluorescent light. It's Tuesday morning at Dallas-Fort Worth International, and the security line stretches back like a river that's forgotten how to move. Near the front, an elderly man waits. His name is James Collier, though no one here knows that. To them, he's just another passenger, gray-haired, stooped slightly at the shoulders, wearing a windbreaker that's seen too many seasons and khaki pants with a crease ironed down the front. His hands shake just a little as he places his worn leather bag on the conveyor belt. Not from fear, from time. He's 87 years old. The TSA agent behind the scanner is young, maybe 23, maybe younger. She's been on shift since 4 in the morning, and her eyes have that glazed-over look of someone who stopped seeing people hours ago. Bags pass through the X-ray, shoes, belts, keys, laptops, a child stuffed bear. Then James's bag. She stops. Her hand hovers over the radio clipped to her belt. She leans closer to the screen, squinting at something inside the image. Something metal. Something unusual. "Sir," she calls out. James doesn't hear her at first. His hearing aids are older than most of the people in this terminal. "Sir," she says again, louder this time. He turns, blinking behind thick glasses. "Can you step aside, please?" There's no aggression in her voice, just procedure, just policy. But the words land heavy anyway, because they always do when you're singled out. The line behind him shifts, impatient. Someone sighs. A businessman checks his watch. James moves to the side, slow and steady, the way men of his generation always move, like hurrying is an insult to dignity. "I'm going to need to search your bag," the agent says. "Of course," James replies. His voice is soft, almost apologetic. She unzips the leather bag on a steel table under bright lights. Inside, a shaving kit, a folded shirt, a paperback novel with a cracked spine, and a small velvet box. She opens the box. Inside is a medal. Not a commemorative coin, not a souvenir, a medal. Bronze star suspended from a faded ribbon, the kind that doesn't come from a catalog. The kind that comes from a ceremony held in silence, years ago, when the cameras had already moved on. The agent doesn't recognize it. Why would she? It's just metal to her, just something that needs to be checked. "What is this?" she asks. James looks at her, and for just a moment, something flickers across his face. Not anger, not pride, something quieter. "It's mine," he says. "I can see that, sir, but I need to know what it is." "It's a medal," he says simply. She frowns, picks it up, turns it over in her gloved hands like she's inspecting fruit at a grocery store. "I'm going to need to run this separately." Behind them, the line groans. A woman mutters something under her breath. A child asks why the old man is taking so long. James just stands there. He's been standing for a long time, 63 years to be exact. Since a winter morning in Korea when the ground was frozen so hard you couldn't dig a grave without dynamite. Since a ridge overlooking a valley where the snow turned red and the only sound was wind and breathing. Since a moment when he made a choice that saved 11 men and cost him 2 fingers on his left hand. He doesn't think about that now. He stopped thinking about it every day a long time ago. But it never really left him. It lives in the space between his ribs, in the way he flinches at loud noises, in the way he always checks the exits when he enters a room. The agent is still holding the medal, and somewhere, 3 gates down, a man in a crisp uniform glances up from his phone. The man's name is Lieutenant General Raymond Porter, 3 stars on his shoulder, 31 years of service. Deployments in Iraq, Afghanistan, Kosovo. A career built on precision, discipline, and the quiet weight of command. He's traveling in civilian clothes today, blazer, no tie, but the posture gives him away. Straight back, level gaze, the kind of presence that makes space around him even in a crowd. He's waiting for his flight to DC, scrolling through emails on his phone when something makes him look up. Maybe it's instinct, maybe it's habit. But his eyes land on the security checkpoint, and he sees the old man standing beside the table. He sees the agent holding something small. He sees the way James Collier stands. Not defensive, not entitled, just patient. Like he's used to waiting. Like he's done it before. Porter narrows his eyes. From this distance, he can't make out the details. But something about the scene feels wrong. Not dangerous, just wrong. He stands, walks toward the checkpoint. Nobody stops him. They never do. Authority moves like water. It finds its level without asking permission. Back at the table, another agent has joined the first. This one's older, maybe 40, with a wedding ring and a laminated badge that says supervisor. He's running the metal under a handheld scanner now, waving it like a wand over holy relics. "Sir, do you have documentation for this item?" he asks. James blinks. Documentation? Proof of ownership, a certificate, a letter, anything official. "It's mine," James says again, quieter now. "I understand that, sir, but we need verification." "I earned it." The supervisor looks at him, and for just a second, something softens in his face. But policy is policy. Procedure is procedure. "I'm sure you did," he says carefully. "But without paperwork, I can't let this through." James's jaw tightens, not with anger, with something older than that, with the kind of exhaustion that comes from explaining yourself over and over to people who weren't there. "It was awarded to me in 1952, he says, "by a captain whose name I can't remember, in a field hospital outside Chorwan. I was bleeding through my uniform, and they gave me this and told me I did good. There's no paperwork. There never was." The supervisor hesitates. The first agent looks uncomfortable. The line has stopped moving entirely now. People are watching, some annoyed, some curious, a few with phones out, recording. And then a voice cuts through the noise. "Excuse me." Everyone turns. Lieutenant General Raymond Porter stands at the edge of the checkpoint, hands in his pockets, expression unreadable. "What's the issue here?" he asks. The supervisor straightens instinctively. Even out of uniform, Porter carries rank like gravity. "Sir, we're just conducting a standard security check." "I can see that," Porter says evenly. "What I'm asking is, what's the issue?" The agent gestures toward the metal. "We found this item in the passenger's bag. We're trying to verify." Porter steps closer, looks at the metal, and stops. He knows that ribbon. He's seen it on walls, in museums, in the faded photographs of men who came before him. The Bronze Star, with a V device for valor. He looks at James. James looks back. 2 veterans, 2 wars, 2 lifetimes, but the same uniform underneath. "May I?" Porter asks quietly, nodding toward the metal. The supervisor hands it over. Porter holds it like it weighs more than it does, turns it over, reads the engraving on the back, faint and worn. PFCJ Collier, 7th INF, Korea. He's quiet for a long moment, then he hands it back to James, not to the agent, to James. "This," Porter says, loud enough for everyone to hear, "is a Bronze Star for valor. It was awarded to this man for courage under fire in combat. It doesn't need documentation. It needs respect." The checkpoint goes silent. Porter turns to the supervisor. His voice is calm, but there's steel underneath. "You're doing your job. I understand that. But this man earned the right to carry that medal anywhere he damn well pleases. And if you have a problem with that, you can take it up with me." The supervisor swallows, nods. No problem, sir. We're cleared. Porter looks at James, extends his hand. Thank you for your service, sir. James takes his hand. His grip is weak now, but it was strong once. Strong enough to pull a wounded man through snow. Strong enough to hold a rifle steady when everything around him was falling apart. Thank you, James whispers. Porter nods once, steps back, lets the old man collect his things. James zips up his bag, picks it up, walks through the metal detector without a sound. The line resumes. The crowd moves on, but something has shifted. Act 3, the cost, 14,23 maktukts. James doesn't look back. He walks slowly through the terminal, past the Hudson News and the Starbucks and the families waiting at gates. His hands are still shaking, but not from the confrontation, from memory. Because the metal isn't just metal. It's a morning in January 1952. It's a ridge called Heartbreak, though they didn't call it that until later. It's the sound of mortars hitting frozen ground. It's the smell of cordite and diesel and blood. It's the faces of boys who weren't old enough to vote, but were old enough to die. James was 19. He wasn't supposed to be there. He'd lied about his age to enlist, the way so many did back then. Signed his name on a line and got on a bus and didn't look back. His mother cried. His father shook his hand. His little sister gave him a photograph of herself, smiling in a Sunday dress. He still has that photograph. He doesn't have his sister anymore. She died in 1987. Cancer. But he remembers her. The same way he remembers the men on that ridge. Corporal Eddie Vasquez, who played harmonica at night and talked about opening a restaurant in El Paso. Private First Class Thomas Reed, who stuttered when he was nervous and wrote poetry in the margins of field manuals. Sergeant Harold Kim, who could fix anything with duct tape and wire, and never stopped smiling, even when there was nothing to smile about. They were his family, not by blood, by something stronger. When the Chinese overran the southern flank, James and his squad were ordered to hold the line. 12 men, no reinforcements, no air support, just rifles and grenades and the stubborn refusal to break. They held for 6 hours. By the time relief arrived, there were 3 of them left standing. James lost 2 fingers when a grenade landed too close. He didn't feel it at first. Adrenaline, cold, shock. It wasn't until later, in the aid station, that he looked down and saw the stumps wrapped in gauze. The captain who gave him the medal said he saved lives that day. James never believed that. He just did what had to be done. The same way every man out there did. The same way Eddie and Thomas and Harold would have done if the bullets had found someone else instead. There was no ceremony, no parade, just a handshake and a ribbon pinned to a blood-stained jacket. He sent the medal home in a box, told his mother to keep it safe, told her not to make a fuss. She kept it in a drawer for 40 years. When she died, it came back to him. He's carried it ever since. Not because he's proud, not because he wants recognition, because it's the only thing that proves he was there, that they were there, that it wasn't just a nightmare. Lieutenant General Raymond Porter sits at his gate, watching the planes taxi outside the window. He thinks about the old man. He thinks about the medal. He thinks about the wars he's fought, and the ones his father fought, and the long chain of men who wore the same uniform across generations. Porter's own father was a Marine. Vietnam, 1968. Came home with a Purple Heart and nightmares that lasted 30 years. He never talked about it. Not to Porter, not to anyone. But Porter knew, the same way he knows that the man at the checkpoint wasn't just carrying a medal. He was carrying ghosts. Porter has his own. Fallujah, 2004. A convoy ambushed en route Michigan. 3 trucks burning. The smell of diesel and scorched metal. The choice between waiting for backup or going in. He went in. They all came home. but he still sees the smoke. He wonders if James Collier still sees the snow. He wonders if any of them ever really come home. James boards his flight to Denver. He sits by the window, 18A, his bag tucked under the seat in front of him. The plane fills slowly. Businessmen, families, a soldier in fatigues 2 rows up. James watches the soldier for a moment, sees the fresh haircut, the clean uniform, the polite nod to the flight attendant, sees himself, 63 years ago, before the cold, before the blood, before the names carved into stone. The plane lifts off, the city falls away beneath them, and for a few minutes, James floats between earth and sky, between then and now. He closes his eyes and remembers. By the time James lands in Denver, the sun is low on the horizon, painting the mountains gold and purple. His daughter is waiting for him at baggage claim. 52 years old now, hair graying at the temples, but still the same girl who used to sit on his lap and ask him to tell her stories. He told her stories about everything except the war. "Dad," she says, hugging him carefully. "How was the flight?" "Fine," he says. "Smooth." She takes his bag, leads him toward the parking garage. They talk about the weather, about her kids, about the house he's staying in for the week. She doesn't ask about the medal. She knows better. But later that night, after dinner, after the grandkids have gone to bed, she sees the velvet box on the nightstand in the guest room. "You brought it," she says softly. James looks up from the book he's pretending to read. "Yeah." "Why?" He's quiet for a long time. "Because it's not mine," he finally says. "It belongs to the men who didn't come home. I'm just holding on to it for them." She sits on the edge of the bed, touches his hand. "You ever think about talking to someone? About all of it?" He smiles, but it doesn't reach his eyes. "Honey, I've been talking to them for 60 years. She doesn't push. She never has. She kisses his forehead, turns off the light, leaves him alone with his ghosts. Across the country, in a hotel room near Reagan National, Lieutenant General Raymond Porter sits at a desk, writing an email. It's addressed to the TSA director. It's not a complaint, not a reprimand, just a quiet reminder. Today, at DFW, I watched a security team stop a veteran carrying a Bronze Star for valor. They didn't recognize it. They asked for paperwork. They made an 87-year-old man explain himself in front of a crowd. These men don't ask for much. They don't ask for parades. They don't ask for recognition. But they deserve better than this. Training is important. Procedure is important. But so is memory. So is respect. Please do better. He doesn't sign it with his rank. He signs it. Respectfully, Raymond Porter. He sends it and hopes it matters. James Collier dreams that night. Not of airports, not of security lines, of snow, of a ridge overlooking a valley where the wind carried voices, of Eddie Vasquez playing harmonica under a canvas tarp, his breath turning to frost in the cold, of Thomas Reed reading a letter from his mother, lips moving silently, tears frozen on his cheeks, of Harold Kim laughing at something stupid, something no one else thought was funny, but laughing anyway because laughter was the only thing that kept them human. He dreams of the morning they died, the way the ground shook, the way the air turned to fire, the way he crawled through the snow, pulling Harold's body behind him, screaming for a medic even though he knew it was too late. He dreams of the medal, cold and heavy in his hand. And he dreams of the captain who gave it to him, a man whose face he's forgotten, but whose words he never will. "You did good, son. Don't let anyone tell you different." He wakes up at 3 a.m, breathing hard, his hand clutching the blanket. The house is quiet. The medal sits on the nightstand, glinting faintly in the moonlight. He doesn't cry. He stopped crying a long time ago, but he whispers their names. Eddie, Thomas, Harold, and a dozen others whose faces he still sees. History doesn't remember the noise. It remembers the silence that followed, the empty chairs at Thanksgiving tables, the photographs in boxes in attics, the medals in velvet cases, carried through airports by old men whose hands shake not from age, but from the weight of holding on to something too big to carry alone. James Collier will die in 2019, peacefully, in his sleep. His daughter will find the medal in his nightstand. She'll hold it for a long time, feeling the weight of it, the history of it, the grief of it. And then she'll put it in a glass case, on a wall, where the light can touch it, where his grandchildren can see it and ask, "Who was he?" And she'll tell them the truth. He was a soldier. He was a father. He was a man who did what had to be done and then lived with the memory. He wasn't a hero. He was just there. And that was enough. War doesn't end when the shooting stops. It ends when the last person who remembers finally rests. And even then, it lives on, in the silence, in the medals, in the stories we carry forward. This is one of them.